I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I am your host, Rachel Dalton. I hope everybody is doing well. As always, I'd like to give a special welcome. I know that we have new listeners, which is super exciting. So thank you so much for being here, for giving this a listen, and for your support. And I hope you stick around. I really appreciate it. I don't have a lot to say in the intro this week, though. You know, in past weeks, we've talked about Tantra and I've done research, or, you know, I've talked about articles, and, you know, last week we talked about holla back, whatever the last episode was, we talked about holla back. But I guess I'm in a kind of interesting place in my personal life. I've gotten to meet a lot of really awesome people that I admire in the past couple weeks. And that includes Christine Hassler, who is somebody that I have admired for a very long while. I got to have a conversation with her a few weeks ago, not for the podcast, just for, you know, life. And Matthew Hussey, I also got to meet, which I think is so cool, so awesome. I you know, he's one of the many people that inspired the beginning of this podcast. So being able to have a conversation with him was super cool. So I don't know. And then I saw To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway and met Jeff Daniels at the stage tour. So it's been kind of bizarre with all of these different people. It's just kind of funny how what's the saying? When God closes a door, he opens a window, or whatever. So yeah, it's been cool to feel some things kind of fall into place, especially with, you know, how kind of tough the last couple months have been. So that's been really, really cool. I'm super excited for the things that are coming next for the show. I guess I'll touch on that a little bit. We're gonna keep going. We're coming up on a year of me doing this show solo. Hard to believe, but I'm super happy with where we've ended up, and there's so many cool conversations still to have, and that I already have had that are waiting in my backlog. And I'm going to be recording new episodes starting in the new year for the next go round at this. So super excited. So many cool people I've met through the course of this. So many cool people that we've met, you know, over all of this. And I hope that you've been able to follow them on social media and see more about what they're up to. They're all really stellar people, and it's been awesome to stay in contact with them throughout this. So I hope that you do the same. My guest today is Martha. We're going to talk about vaginismus, among other things, but that's one of the main points that we're going to cover. Martha is the best. I mean, I feel like I say that all the time, but she truly is. We had an amazing conversation. I learned a lot, and she has a number of books that you should check out. You can get them on Amazon and through her website. So without any, I just got a live update for my computer. If I weren't recording this in a little bit of a rush, I would just go back and delete it, but that's not where we're at right now. So anyway, yeah, I really hope that you enjoy this conversation with Martha. I'm sorry that this intro has been a little bit all over the place. I'm in the middle of a really just kind of hectic few weeks with life, conversations that I'm having with people for the podcast and, you know, not for the podcast, and auditions and performance opportunities that I've had here and there. So it's just been busy. But with all of that being said, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you. The next intro that I do, we'll be back to talking about something of actual substance instead of me just kind of rambling on. But thank you for listening, and please enjoy my conversation with Martha.
What is it, honey?
It's that darn ghost again. He just won't leave us alone. I guess we're just going to have to move.
No, wait. Don't worry. We're not moving. He is.
Who are you going to call?
Blockbusters. Actually, we know nothing about catching ghosts other than what we saw in that old cartoon. But if you want a podcast where we talk about film, TV, random tangents that leave you wondering what the hell was that all about, and the occasional nugget of wisdom, then we're the ones for you. And as you act now, you can listen to our entire back catalogue for free.
Did you say free?
Yes, I did. So go now to your nearest podcatching device, shake off the ectoplasm, and download us today. Warning, listening to Blockbusters can lead to stomach cramps from laughing, headaches from attempting to remember what tangent they went on this time, and a worn-out section of your device's screen/keyboard as you smash the replay button over and over until the next episode arrives. If your Blockbusters episode lasts longer than 4 hours, tell your doctor so he can listen as well.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am here today with my guest, Dr. Martha Tara Lee. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you today. This is a topic that, I know a little bit about, but I definitely am ready to learn more. So let's jump right in. Can you tell me a little bit about you? Who are you? How did you get into this work? And what do you do in the world?
Thank you for asking. My name is Martha. I am a relationship counselor and clinical sexologist. I've been in practice for 12 years. I am Singaporean Chinese, born and bred Singaporean and based in Singapore. I am fortunate to be able to work with the locals, the Asians primarily, and also expats, people from all around the world. So I would say it's about 50-50. And in my work, I work a lot with people who are sexually inhibited, people who have very little sex education. And I got into this work because I felt angry. I felt angry that sex was never talked about in positive ways growing up. And I felt somebody needed to make a stand. And so, I went to US, got all the training that I needed, and started my practice 12 years ago.
That's fantastic. I love that you were so inspired.
Yeah, I really wanted to come back and help my own people. And it's great that I have all this international exposure through Singapore, Singapore being at the hub of gateway to many, many countries.
Mm-hmm. Where did you study in the U.S.?
Yes, so I studied in San Francisco, the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. And many of my classmates are really well-known sex educators now. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And so today we're going to be talking about vaginismus, sexual inhibition, and sexuality in Singapore and in Asia. So I guess let's start with the vaginismus. What is it? What is the cause? How can it be treated? Just give me an overview of what it is.
Sure. Vaginismus is a condition that happens when a person with a vagina, the vagina shuts down, clamps up, making penetration difficult or impossible. And penetration could mean anything from the finger, sex toy, tampon, to the penis. And there are two types of vaginismus. There's primary and secondary. Primary is for people who have had it all along, their whole lives. They are virgins. And secondary vaginismus happens to people who were able to have penetration, and usually because of some kind of a trauma, then they develop vaginismus later on. It really happens to a lot of people who have this psychological fear of penetration. It's a psychological fear. The mind is afraid. And so the body is trying to protect itself and tenses up the vaginal entrance. It is very much linked to the lack of sex education and lack of sexual anatomy, and lack of the anticipation. So there's this like fear of pain, not knowing what to expect. So I sometimes call it the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm. That makes a ton of sense. So it sounds like it is related to pelvic floor issues where just it's entirely everything about the vagina just kind of closes up and no entrance, right?
Yeah. I do agree with you that it could be also the pelvic floor being really tense and tight. So certain pelvic floor exercises can help. However,
Okay.
it is the anticipation of penetration that causes the pelvic floor muscles to tense up at that moment. So there is a link with the muscles are really tight by itself. However, there are, people who are really only tense when they are in anticipation of the pain. As a sexologist, because I don't do hands-on touch, I don't examine my clients. And so when my clients come to me and they're unsure whether they have vaginismus, I might refer them to a pelvic floor specialist or to a gynae if they're open to an examination. Most of the time, because a lot of the clients that I work with are virgins also, the idea of somebody touching them is very scary. So I work with them where they're at, including teaching them about anatomy and what kind of pain to expect and sexual exploration of their own bodies, so that at some point when they become more comfortable with their bodies, then they can take the next step of going for a more thorough examination if they so wish.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. So what would, and I know that you don't cover this, but what would a pelvic floor specialist do with them? Would it be like physical therapy?
It would be an assessment. They would
Okay.
first look at the external structure to see if there's nothing abnormal that's not supposed to be there, whether it's warts or bumps or growth, things like that. So they will actually look externally first, and then they would very gently maybe touch externally to see if there's any um, um, obstructions, possibly, and before they try to do digital penetration, usually with a glove over their finger.
Okay. Yeah, that lines up exactly with what I've heard. That sounds really intimate. I really admire people who do that work, and people who do what you do too. How do you talk to clients about vaginismus?
Yeah, so I'm really grateful for the training that I've had when I was in San Francisco. We went through a lot of discussions and readings and videos and whatnot to really start to become desensitized when it comes to sex. So essentially, it's so important when clients are talking to us about sex that we have what counselors call a poker face. Like, we don't freak out, we don't judge people for what they're sharing with us. And the desensitization process basically means you just talk about sex a lot until it just becomes normal, and when we are able to talk about sex in a calm, peaceful, positive way, it's really, really important because we're normalizing it for our clients. So I think when my clients come in and they're nervous and they have that sense of ease and comfort that I have talking about sex, they in turn will relax. And when they start to open up to me, regardless of whether they know the sexual anatomy or certain vocabulary around sexual terms, it really doesn't matter, because end of the day, in my work, we are supposed to understand what they're trying to say. Terms being used in different languages, like as sexologists, we are supposed to be the space holder for them. And so really it's about us meeting them where they're at rather than judging them, really.
I love that. Yeah, that's so understanding, and empathy is probably such a big part of it, and
Yeah,
understanding. That's
exactly.
really awesome. That's really cool. Well, talk to me about how vaginismus can impact a romantic relationship, both sexually, but also just mentally, emotionally.
Yeah. Well, there's this saying that sex is not just physical, it's mental, it's emotional. And when someone is being penetrated, whether it's digitally or meaning with finger or sex toy or with penetration of a penis, there's this sense of closeness and union. And that's the kind of intimacy that sex provides. So unfortunately for people who own a penis, they somehow may have that feeling that it just doesn't feel complete. And so it can inhibit that closeness that they would want to feel. And it's really, for me, I feel sex is also an expression of love. That's that sense of sacredness when two people are in union with each other. And so it can really affect their sense of feeling wanted, feeling loved, and not being able to have penetration can lead to the partner feeling isolated and rejected even. So it can lead to communication breakdown in terms of avoidance of sex and conflict, arguments around this topic of sex. And it can lead to cheating, it can lead to betrayal, it can lead to withdrawal, it can lead to the relationship breaking down. And the double whammy about vaginismus is it's not just about sex, it's also about the idea of what if I can't have a baby, if I want a baby. And so it is linked to fertility as well. And so it is really a very devastating thing, especially for people who have primary vaginismus and find out after they're married that they can't consummate their marriage. And then there's that fear of annulment and divorce. And there's all that shame. And if they're with a partner who doesn't really understand what's vaginismus and how to support them, which most people don't, then it can lead to a lot of blaming and shaming of their partner. And many of my clients who have vaginismus who go and seek help usually go to a general practitioner or a gynae who doesn't specialize in vaginismus. So what happens is they may get advice that really doesn't help, like, oh, just relax, or just use this lidocaine numbing gel, or just use dilators. It's really not that helpful when somebody says just relax.
No, it's definitely not. I can see that. Do you talk to the partners of the people who have vaginismus at all, just to kind of help them understand? Like,
Yes.
is there like an education component to that?
Yes. Guys, I see this very much as teamwork because I don't do hands-on touch. So whatever that I would otherwise, if I was a physio or if I was a sex surrogate, otherwise, the partner has to do it with them. And having that support is so vital to them feeling that they're not alone, and the encouragement, because end of the day, when they want to move on from overcoming vaginismus to be able to have penetrative sex, they want to know that their partner is going to be there, because that's the only reason why they want to overcome this issue for their partner. Even though it should be for themselves, a lot of times they actually see this as something they need because they have fear, right? So they're like, it doesn't really matter, but because it matters so much to their partner, then they want to overcome it. So yes, it's very important that the partner comes in together with them, because it's in my work, it's the same price whether I work with one person or a couple. And if it's a couple, it's much better because I explain once and I get the both of them being on the same page and having the same vocabulary and understanding. And they can check for understanding as well when they go back, and they can support one another or remind each other about the exercises or do the exercises together. It's so important to have the support of the partner. I have seen so many people who are really, really defeated because their partner is saying, this is your problem, go fix it. And there's no support. And often there's a lot of guilt when the partner comes in with them. And so I would put it across to them, if your partner is the one who has this issue, would you go with your partner? So why are you blaming yourself? Because there may come a point in your relationship where you'll be the one who needs to support your partner. And that's what being in a relationship is about.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of like brings me to, there's erectile dysfunction. Like, what are some other types of sexual inhibitions? I mean, you just said that you may need to support your partner at another time, and one of those instances could be if the person with the penis is having a hard time maintaining an erection. Do you work with people like
Yes.
that too?
Yes, I do. I work with people with erectile difficulties, with delayed ejaculation, with premature ejaculation, with low sex drive. So I work with all kinds of sexual issues, really. It would have been easier for me, I think, being a woman, to only work with women. However, I felt that I really wouldn't do them justice, because I think as much as women need support, men also need support. And there are really so few
Definitely.
practitioners in Singapore. And so, yeah, I love working with people of all genders, sexual orientations.
That's great. And yeah, I agree. There's so much focus on vaginismus and whatnot. And the men really need that support too,
Yeah.
people with penises. So that's really great. What does that work look like? Is it similar to just kind of talking through doing exercises, teaching them to be less hard on themselves?
Yes. So when I work with people with penises, I do give them exercises to do. So for people with vaginismus and people with penises, the exercise Kegels, pelvic floor squeezes, really helps a lot with body-mind connection. And I teach them like how to masturbate in different ways, so that they become more comfortable with their bodies, and teach them like techniques to resensitize their penis if they have delayed ejaculation, or desensitize their penis if they have premature ejaculation. So essentially, it really depends what issues they have. And often they come in with multiple issues, really, because they may think the issue is sex. A lot of times the suffering really comes from the lack of communication and shutting their partner down. And so I start working with them on the communication and relationship as well.
Yeah, and I bet people would be surprised that when you start working with them on the communication, how the sex part just gets a little bit easier.
Yes. So, like my supervisors said to me, there are no end to the number of things that we could work on. But for a lot of people, once the sex is okay, like the relationship will also be okay. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg, like which do you work on first?
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And there's such interplay between the two of them.
Precisely.
When you're dealing with a sexual mismatch or miscommunication, there's going to be that it's going to translate to the communication and vice versa. I guess you were talking about how guilt and shame affect this. Tell me a little bit more about that and how it can relate to the relationship as well as the sex.
Yes, because they know sex is difficult or impossible, and so they want to do something, but they don't know what to do. And they know that if they try it, they also don't know how to improve things. And so there's that stuckness around, like, what do we do? It's better not to do anything because I can't deal with the crying and the kind of iciness around. It just makes everything really awkward. So the shame comes from, like, I'm not good enough, or I'm so dumb, or I'm so slow, or I don't get it. And then there's the blame. Yeah, so it's very, very layered, and that can lead to paralysis. Like, okay, they really, really don't know what to do. And if this goes on for a long enough time, because I have had clients who have vaginismus for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. So the longer that they had this condition, the more this stuckness around. It's this big elephant in the room, and it's just too painful to even go there. they can't even take the smallest step. It's because it's too painful. It brings out a lot of very negative emotions. So that's what I mean, like paralysis.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it can kind of like take over your entire life.
It does. It really changes them. And, you know, they're just not happy people.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that. Well, I think that's incredible work that you're doing. Somebody needs to do it. And actually that leads me. So you're based in Singapore, and you said that there was a lack of open conversation about sex.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned to me initially when we touched base that you wanted to talk about Asian sexuality. So tell me about that, and you know how it differs from, you know, what we in the U.S. might think about sexuality.
Yeah, I being born and bred Asian, I don't know any other way. So I don't know any other upbringing. So to give you an example, when I went to the US and I was the only Asian in my class, my classmates were bewildered when I said like young people see unprotected sex as like love, and they just couldn't believe their ears because it was drummed into them from a very young age, like to have unprotected sex is stupid, you know, or like ridiculous. Like safer sex is like the way, and and they don't know any other way because they've had sex education their whole lives. Whereas for me, I had no sex education, and we only have some sex education in Singapore in the last 10 years or so. So really,
Yeah, that's a little late.
we come from very, very different universe, you know. And so when people from the US or my friends who are expats, you know, talk to me about sexuality or sex with Asians, it's like, you know, they say I don't know what's wrong with them. They just lie there like a starfish. And a lot of times when you are nervous about what's going on and you're unsure and you've like everything is new, you do get overwhelmed and you do lie there and not know what to do. And there is that sense of frozenness. So I think the difference with Asians, or the so-called good girls and good boys who really listened to their parents and didn't explore their bodies, didn't masturbate, know very little, is that they end up being very, very inhibited when it comes to their sexuality. It's just a lot more delayed than other people because as Asians, we also live with our parents until we get married. So,
right. Okay.
so you don't have that sense of autonomy and independence or freedom or even space to explore your own bodies. A lot of people don't know where to masturbate and can't masturbate because they share their bedroom with their siblings, or the only place they can do it is in the bathroom, and their parents will be knocking on the bathroom like, why are you in the bathroom for so long?
Right.
Like there's also that sense of like lack of space and freedom and respect, and the concept of consent, and it's so new that in recent years, like there's a big spike in the sexual violence in Singapore, like upskirt videos and you know, like online harassment and stuff. So it comes from the very beginning because as a society we don't talk about it, and the shadow side of sexuality just surfaces. What is hidden and in the dark, you know, I call it like it becomes moldy, you know, it takes a weird shape. And so this is all coming out because it's really not brought up enough and in positive ways, because the forbidden side of sexuality is exciting. And so this is why there's all these behaviors happening.
That's really interesting. And I guess you said that you didn't get any sex education until like the last 10 years. What did your sex education look like? Was it positive? Was it fear-mongering? Like what did
Yeah,
it look
so
like
I
for you?
didn't get any sex education at all in schools. It only started in Singapore, I think in the last 10 years. I mean, sex education in Singapore system. Um,
Oh, okay, I get
yeah.
it. Okay.
Um, yeah, so I had a
How
lot
did you learn
to,
about it?
so I had to, I thought I knew a lot because I was very sexually active, right? Like I didn't have much sex education, but I was sexually active. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm very comfortable with my body and like sex is great. So I guess I know a lot about sex. So it wouldn't be difficult to be a sexologist. That's what I thought. And then I went to the US and I learned so much about what I didn't know coming from this very sheltered background. So like I've never had to really question my sexual identity or sexual orientation, and I now realize that people like gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, like how difficult it is for them to be in the minority and be marginalized and discriminated. And also the topic of sexuality and disability, sexuality and illness and cancer, and the interrelatedness of all these, basically just about being human. So it really woke me up. Like there's so many people that really deserve support with their sexuality. Yeah.
Absolutely. They really, no, that's a great answer. A really good answer. Are you still, I think it says on your website that you're the only certified sex educator in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
Is that still true?
So there are many people who call themselves sex educators. Like anybody can, be an educator and
Right.
say I educate sex. But I'm the only person who is sex certified. By the American Association of Certified Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. So because of my doctorate, because of my degree from the US, then I applied for certification. And so, yeah, I am the only one because it's very expensive to go all the way to the US and
Definitely.
get accredited, get trained, and then get accredited. It's really difficult. So yeah, I'm the only one.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, how do your loved ones respond to your career choice? I mean, based with what you talked about with how sexuality is
Yeah,
treated.
I think my parents really didn't really know what my career choice meant. They really learned about what I was doing and how I was helping people through the media articles that I was featured in. And over time, they really started to become like proud of me. I would have to say that even though I have a lot of training and I help people in a very specialized way, it doesn't mean that I earn a lot of money. It's not because of the niche that I'm in. So I don't necessarily earn a lot of money, which is very, very important for Asians. You earn money and then you give your parents money. So,
Yeah, right.
so I would say that they are proud of me. I do wish that I earn more money.
Yeah, I understand that struggle. I mean, it's great that you're doing something that you're passionate about, though. I mean, ultimately, that's what matters.
Yeah. It was only in the last 2 years that things really got a little bit better for me financially. For really the last 10 years, I would say I was really living month by month, and very, very difficult to even make ends meet, much less save money. So in the last 2 years, what has changed was I became the locum sexuality counselor for Cancer Society in Singapore. So I also work
That's
with
awesome.
so I also work with cancer survivors and their families on their sexuality and relationships. So that supplemented my income. And then last year and this year, I started to also work with Disabled People's Association in Singapore. So I work with people with autism, and I run sexuality workshops for people with disabilities. And last year, I also became the sexologist of a sex shop. So I'm supporting them with marketing and social media. So with all these like different jobs that I'm doing, like finally I'm able to have money to save up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and you put the work in and here it is.
Yeah, I think it really, really is not as easy as people think. A lot of my colleagues in the US, they can't survive. They have to get multiple jobs. And I'm so fortunate that I just stuck with it, and I just really dug my heels in, and I just refused to budge. And I just wanted to hold space for people who needed support. And I just basically put my flag in the sand and said, I'm not moving. And these opportunities finally came by, and they are directly related to what I want to do and what I'm passionate about. And not many people have that opportunity.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it sounds like you're really filling a need that, people really need an expert in this area. And, you have the training and you have the experience, and you're there to be able to help people. That's really incredible.
Oh, thank you so much.
I guess I'm wondering, tell me more about the work that you do with your clients. I know that I went on your site, and oh my gosh, like, you are such an accomplished person. You have a number of books, right? What are your books about?
Yeah, so I have 4 books. The first book is a compilation of my writings, and it's basically like Sex Ed 101. The second is called Orgasmic Yoga. It's a book about it's about really having extended masturbation with yourself. And what this does is it lights up your body in different ways, and it stretches your body's capacity for pleasure. And it's a practice that I learned from my teacher, Joseph Kramer, and I love the practice so much. It changed my life. So then I wrote the book about it. The third book is a much more personal book, where I try to go through the different stages of my life. So every chapter starts with a personal story, and then has some advice for readers. So for instance, like how I first discovered masturbation, and then I would share like some tips on how to masturbate. So that's like one chapter. And then my fourth book is actually a photo book. It's an Asian vulva photo book, and it's actually banned in Singapore. I'm not allowed to sell it in Singapore. And
wow.
yeah, it's crazy because it's explicit, right? So explicit material in Singapore is usually banned. Yeah, porn sites are banned. In Singapore, if you can watch porn online, you just can't download it into the country. So certain sites are banned.
Okay.
Yeah, like Playboy is banned. But of course, people know about VPN.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how that works.
There are ways around it.
Yeah, I know. So really, I think when people have access to the internet, they have access to everything that's out there, and you don't give an alternative reality to the young people. And so this is how the ugly and shadow side of sexuality is coming up in Singapore right now, and I guess everywhere in the world. I think like in countries that are really, really open, like Switzerland or Denmark, where they have like explicit material after hours, people are a lot more like sex is just part of life, it's normalized. And I think people with the most information and education and access to sexuality are the people who are the most sexually equipped and confident, and they will have less problems with their sexuality. Whereas in Singapore, because of all that repression, we just like any developed country, we have low birth rates and people have all kinds of difficulties with their sexuality, and lots of people are unhappy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, I have 4 books, and I hope that books would be part of my legacy because I love books. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to read. I want to check your books out for sure. I mean, that's been like the coolest thing about this is being able to like get all of these resources from all like wonderful, accomplished people like yourself. I'm just like, oh, I have so much to read now. So definitely check that out. Where can people find your books?
Yeah, they can get my books through Amazon. Yeah, my 3 of them. my 4th
Okay.
book, the one that's banned. I only have limited copies of it left. I can sell it to
Ooh,
people
special.
outside of Singapore, just not in Singapore.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. What are the workarounds, I guess, when it comes to like censorship and porn? You mentioned like VPN and there are ways around that, but like what do you have to do in your work to make sure that your stuff doesn't get banned? Like I'm trying to figure out like how to phrase the question.
No, it's
Like
fine.
if your work is considered explicit, you know?
Yeah. So the thing is, what I do is not illegal because like I'm providing sexuality education and counseling, but I'm not a sex worker. I don't do sex work, and I'm not doing any pimping. Like I'm not representing anybody, and
Mhm.
so that's not what I do. Is not illegal. I do have explicit material, which
Right.
when I first became a sexologist, I actually wrote to the ministries. So what actually ended up happening was my material is gazetted. So what it means is like I have like special permission to screen my material in my office. That's it, with my clients.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. So that makes sense. So you
Yeah.
have like special permission. Okay.
It's like special
That makes
permission.
sense.
It's really like one of the, it's gazetted. Basically, it's like one of the statues or something.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, that is really incredible. And when you work with clients, what's that journey look like? I guess that's kind of like my last question. It's kind of a vague one, but do you start with an assessment? You start with talking to them about it, and like if sexuality is looked at in such a certain way, how do you get people talking about it openly? How do you get them comfortable?
Because because they're paying for it, and because
Sure.
they are coming because they have an issue. So we usually just start off with like, like what brought you here, what made you decide to come see me, and then they would tell me what's going on in their lives and what's that intention for the session, what they would like to learn, and then I would share with them like what I understand from what they're saying. So I will reflect back to check for understanding, and sometimes it's a pretty straightforward question, like, oh, they have premature ejaculation, everything else is fine, they just want to know how to overcome this. So we just focus on the premature ejaculation part, and give them exercises, and then I usually recommend that they come in for at least a few sessions because I would teach them the exercises, but I just want to make sure that they are doing it correctly, and also the subsequent exercises will be like progressively more challenging.
Right.
So I can't really teach them everything at once because it's just too overwhelming. Because
Yeah,
it has happened. It's not that I don't want to share with them everything at once. It's that they really wouldn't be able to do them anyway, and they wouldn't be able to absorb so much information at once. So that I break it down into like a plan for them, so that they see the reason why I'm encouraging them to have more sessions, things like that.
Okay, that makes sense. And you're right. It does make sense that when they come in, since they're paying for it, they wouldn't want to waste time with talking about
so it was not as difficult as I thought, because a lot of people they would have been in enough suffering that they are very clear like what is the problem, and some of them would even like take notes, like have come with their journal and stuff so that they can like offload everything at once. But I don't actually need like a full life history, I just need to know like what's the issue and like what's been happening, what they tried, and what do they think will help, rather than, oh, this is what happened when I was 3 and then 13.
Sure.
I don't really need like such a thorough history.
Yeah, as long as they've done the work and they know the reasons, why and everything.
Yes.
That's what matters, I imagine. Amazing. Well, where can people find you? Where are you on the internet? You already said people can find 3 of your 4 books on Amazon. Let us know where your site is. If you're on social media, this is your time to promote yourself.
Oh, thank you. So you can find me at eroscoaching.com. That's eroscoaching.com. People who subscribe to my mailing list, like you get a whole bunch of freebies and stuff. And I have 800 videos on YouTube. Also 800 also. That's under Dr. Martali, and on Instagram I'm Dr. Martali. Yeah, so you can pretty much find all the links through my website at eroscoaching.com.
Amazing. Well, Martha, thank you so much for being here today. I feel like I learned a ton, and you are so sweet, and I have loved talking to you, and I love what you're doing, everything that you are bringing back to Singapore. It truly is a gift.
Oh, thank you. You are very sweet as well. Thank you so much.
And everybody, this has been Wine, Dine, and 69. I'm your host, Rachel Dalton, and let's keep talking.